Christopher Marlowe as a poet. Marlowe is the first great poet and creator of English blank verse. His poetry was cast by accident and caprice into an imperfect mold of drama. His plays are highly poetic and heroes are poets. His rude Tamburlaine is essentially a poet. The expressions of Dr. Faustus is highly poetic. Was this the face that launched a thousand ships? But Edward II lacks those beautiful touches of poetic fervor, yet we do not find it utterly devoid of it. Here and there we have uh, fine speeches of poetic fervor. Edward II speaks in highly poetic manner, that is why it attracts our admiration. His poetry is typically Renaissance in true tone and temper. It has graceful diction, charming meter, beautiful similes, allusions, and classical references. We find in it an uncontrollable passion for an idea. It has a scorn for worldly conditions. It mirrors a soaring passion, high imagination, which scales the infinitudes of power, beauty, thought, and love. He is primarily a poet of passion. His heroes are men of passions. They are not intellectuals. Edward II is a man of feeling and not man of ideas. Passion burns the verse of Marlowe. It glows and blooms throughout his poetry. Christopher Marlowe is par excellence in the expression of beauty. Edward II is a pleasure seeker. He is infatuated with Gaveston and cares not for his kingdom and his wife. Isabella expresses his passion for Gaveston's in a highly poetic manner. The king regards me not, but dotes upon the love of Gaveston. He claps his cheeks and hangs about his neck, smiles in his face, and whispers in his ears. There are many purple passages of lyrical heights. No one can say the speeches, particularly of Edward II and Queen Isabella, not sufficiently poetic. When the king is forced by the Archbishop of Canterbury to sign the Gaveston's banishment, he goes mad with rage and swears destruction on the Church of Rome. Why should a king be subject to a priest, proud Rome, that hatchets such imperial grooms? I will fire thy crazed buildings and enforce the papal towers to kiss the lowly ground. Act 1, Scene 2. When younger Mortimer asks, why should you love him whom the world hates so? Then Edward II replies, because he loves me more than all the world. The king cannot endure the proudly menaces of his barons. He does not want to be overruled. He says, I will bandy with the barons and the earls and either die or live with Gaveston. When the king meets Gaveston, he becomes extremely happy and says, know thou not who I am? Thy friend, thyself, another Gaveston. He cannot brook the harsh words used by barons against Gaveston. For Gaveston is his sweet friend. Thus, leaning on the shoulder of the king, he nods and scorns and smiles at those that pass. The speeches of Queen Isabella is also poetic. When younger Mortimer says, Madam, whither walks Your Majesty so fast? Isabella says, unto the forest, gentle Mortimer, to live in grief and baleful discontent, for now my lord the king regards me not, but dotes upon the love of Gaveston. He claps his cheeks and hangs about his neck, and whispers in his ears, and smiles in his face. Again, Queen Isabella says, I will endure a melancholy life and let him frolic with his minion. Gaveston is very much loved by the king. The king says, here, take my picture and let me wear thine. When the king is in passion, whether of sorrow or anger, he bursts forth in the exuberance of poetic speech. The following lines expresses his sorrow for Gaveston. My heart is as an anvil unto sorrow, which beats upon it like the Cyclops hammers, and makes me frantic for my Gaveston. Queen Isabella says, these tears that drizzle from mine eyes had power to mollify his stony heart. When the king receives the news of Gaveston's death in the hands of Warwick, Edward rises the most dizzy heights of poetry in the expression of his royal wrath, sorrow, and desperation in the following lines. By earth, the common mother of all, by heaven and all the moving orbs thereof, I will have heads and lives for him, as many as I have mansions and castles, towns and towers. Finally, the death scene of Edward II is highly poetic and makes a lasting impression on our minds. His memorable lines become the part and parcel of our memory. They are so appealing that our hearts run out the king in the sorrow and dejection. The griefs of private men are soon allayed, but not of kings. The forest deer, being struck, runs to an herb that closeth up the wounds. But when the imperial lion's flesh is gored, he rends and tears with his wrathful paw. Edward becomes far more poetic in his expression when the moment for the surrender of his arrives. Ah, Leicester, way now hardly I can brook to lose my crown and kingdom without cause, to give ambitious Mortimer my right. He does not want to lose his crown. Let me be king till night, that I may gaze upon this glittering crown. In a sudden fit of rage, he refuses to resign his kingship. He does not want to resign. I will not resign, but whilst I live, traitors, begone and join you with Mortimer. Elect, conspire, install, do what you will. Edward II knows. I know the next news that they bring will be my death, and welcome shall it be to wretched men. Death is felicity, he is aware of his ensuing death. I know not, but of this am I assured, that death ends all, and I can die but once. Younger Mortimer too realizes, base fortune, now I see that in thy will there is a point to which when men aspire they tumble headlong down. That point I touched. In fine, it may be said that Marlowe was the father of English dramatic poetry in the sense in which Chaucer was the father of English literature, father of English narrative poetry. His greatest gift to Elizabethan drama was a poetry of passion. Thank you. Please share it and make comments.